feeling I'm about to make some people real mad. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I am doing a spoilery discussion / chat about Rule of Wolves and King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the recent duology in the Grishaverse universe. And as I said, this will contain spoilers because I want to dive right into my thoughts on it. If you want to hear a spoiler-free discussion, I did cover this in my April wrap-up video, so you should go check that out if you don't want to get spoilers but want to hear what my thoughts were. But yeah, I'm just going to dive right in. I didn't read King of Scars when it first came out because I'd heard that it wasn't as good as Six of Crows. It was kind of a bit of a step down, so I kind of put off reading it. But then with just the show coming out last month, and I was rereading Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I was kind of just in a bit of a Grishaverse hole. I decided to buy King of Scars, and then I also bought Rule of Wolves, and I read them both in time for the show coming out, mostly just because I wanted to see if they were going to seed any of the stuff that covers here early on, which they kind of did, especially with Zoya's character. And yeah, sort of, what I'd heard was true. It was a step up from the original Shadow and Bone trilogy, but a step down definitely from Six of Crows, which just have such a special place in my heart because I love that series. But yeah, let's just sort of dive right into all the issues I have with this duology. Okay, we'll start with the good stuff, because I love Nikolai's character. Like, he's such a charismatic character, and it was really fun to see more of him and actually have this series really focus on him. I loved that she gave Zoya more backstory because she was very much this flat, two-dimensional, bitchy, mean girl character in the original trilogy, so it was really nice to actually see her have some depth and almost an explanation as to why she is the way she is. And I also really liked seeing Nina after the events of Crooked Kingdom, and also out with the context of the Crows, because you heard about in Crooked Kingdom and Six of Crows about how she was a patriotic character and she was a spy for Ravka, but actually seeing her in that role in this book was actually quite interesting to see, as well as just how she was after the aftermath of Crooked Kingdom. And I liked King of Scars more than I liked Rule of Wolves, if only for the fact that my biggest issue with this entire duology is that there's all of the build-up and none of the payoff, or no payoff, or no build-up, so therefore the payoff just, there was no build to it, so it was just kind of flat from the get-go. So I really liked King of Scars. I really liked the idea of the sort of Nichevoya coming back and taking over Nikolai, and watching him trying to hold on to the throne and navigate the political situation after what happened at the end of the trilogy, and also with Jirda Parem in the duology. I liked that she didn't just say, ah yes, and then everything was fixed after the fold was gone. It was actually really interesting to see the political aftermath after the fold was gone, and as well as the secondary plot of, and the king then gets taken over by a shadow monster every couple of nights. As well as sort of still fending off the rumours of him being a bastard that obviously turn out to be confirmed. He actually is a bastard and has no claim to the throne, so that was quite interesting to see. It was a bit of a return almost to the flat characters of Shadow and Bone. A lot of the characters that we met I didn't care about, we didn't spend enough time with them, and there was no development. There was development in Zoya and a bit of development in Nina, although I felt that Nina's was rushed, and same with Nikolai's. There wasn't enough time spent with these characters to really understand their motivations and their beliefs, and not a lot of them changed over the course of the two books. The whole plotline with the shadow monster, I felt, just had all the build-up and none of the payoff. So, you've got this mystery, they go to the Saints. I thought that was cool. It was cool that they got to see the Saints. I'll get back to that in a second. But then they sort of, they do that ritual, and whilst, yes, it had a secondary motive of bringing back the Darkling, again, we'll circle back to that. I have thoughts on that plot point. And then after that, in the entirety of this book, he can control it, more or less. And that's it. And there's no consequence. There's no, there's that one thing where maybe a couple of his men are like, the king is a monster, but then he gives up the throne in the end, so it kind of doesn't really matter. So it was just like, where was the payoff for that entire plot point? Bringing back the Darkling, what the fuck was that about? I loved the ending of Ruin and Rising. I loved how he went out. He's this eternal force, this impossibly powerful Grisha, who you spend the entire time thinking the only thing that's going to take him out is a Sun Summoner at the height of her power with all 3 amplifiers. So the fact that it's Alina, powerless with just a blade after having killed her best friend, stands up and she underestimates her as a Notkazatia one more time, and that's what takes him down. He just dies as any normal mortal man would, with a knife to his chest. And then that just gets undone by the fact that he's brought back at the end of King of Scars by that random saint that was, I don't even understand why, I can't remember why she was wanting to bring him back. And then he does fucking nothing for the entirety of this book. Like, what was the point? He just wanders around, feels sorry for himself, joins that weird cult that started following him, and then tries to get a bit of redemption. What was the fucking point? And it just felt like a way as well just to sort of shoehorn in a cameo for Alina and Mal. All the cameos in here felt shoehorned in, from Kaz and Jesper and Wyland to Inej turning up to Alina and Mal. It was just, you could have cut all of that and have the same book. So that kind of annoyed me. He just felt like bad fan service. Like, I don't mind fan service, it would have been really fun to see those characters, but just in a slightly better way than this. This is a rushed book as it is, and then you're cramming in all this extra stuff. It was just, yeah, like I said, no build up, therefore no payoff. So yeah, and again, the way this book ends with that sort of little tease for possibly another Crow's book, you know, Zoya says, tell Kazbrecker that the Queen of Ravka has a job for him, kind of falls flat because we've already seen Kaz. You know, we've gone from the big thing to the smaller things, so yeah, I just didn't, you know, it was like that would have hit so much harder if Kaz and Jesper and Wyland actually hadn't been in this book, although they were arguably the best thing about this book. Zoya's character. Zoya I thought was very interesting to see about how the reason she's such a bitch is because she sort of almost can't cope with how much she feels and how much she cares about other people, so she thinks it's best to try not to care about it in the first place, so she's as bitchy as possible. Interesting plot point. Again, her going from that character though and to the character that does allow in grief, that does allow in love, just felt like it happened in like the sort of almost second half of this book, when you had the whole other books to sort of try and seed it a bit better. And I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity with her Suli heritage, because the Suli are very community-driven people, you know, they're very loving people, they're very caring about their community and sort of how they all live together. And I felt that was maybe a bit of a missed opportunity to almost parallel how she turns her back on her Suli heritage with how she turns her back on caring about other people and letting in that community. So I really feel like she should have spent time with the Suli community, as opposed to just that one scene where she talks to them a little bit, because it then also would have made the fact that she is half Suli feel less like a diversity check. To me, it actually did feel a little bit like a diversity check, because you still didn't see an actual Suli community. They were still just this mysterious sort of traveller community that gets treated badly. You know, it would have actually been nice to have seen seen that group of people and actually have Zoya sort of maybe spend time with them, even just for like a couple of chapters, and maybe they could have helped her through opening up and trying to feel her grief. But I mean, I get maybe why she didn't do that. That's maybe, you know, not a story for a white woman to tell, so maybe I can't really comment on that. But I just feel like there was maybe just a bit of a missed opportunity there to actually really tie in the parallels between her feelings towards her Suli heritage and her feelings towards grief and love and how she treats other people. That being said though, I did like her character journey. I thought it was very interesting to see that was why she was the way she was. Cool that she turned into a dragon at the end of it. I really liked that whole thing about that sort of misunderstanding of the Grisha powers and how she's then able to be a scholar and a tidemaker, and I think maybe also an Inferni all at once, because her tutor sort of pointed out that they're all the same, and that whole idea about the fact that you're not supposed to kill your amplifier, you're supposed to become one with it and understand one another, and that's what will make your power grow. So I thought that was just sort of an interesting sort of idea about how maybe the concepts of the Grisha powers have been lost sort of in time and misunderstood and mistranslated. So I liked that. Nina, as I said, it was interesting to see her after the events of Crooked Kingdom, but I felt like she was, for the first like quarter of King of Scars, she was sort of really feeling the loss of Matthias and the sort of loss of her newfound family now that she's sort of away from them. And then that almost immediately got forgotten about. It was just gone, you know, she's buried Matthias, yep, that's fine, right, we're going to move on now, we've got a new love interest. I thought it would be much more realistic, I think, to almost have her spend the entire 2 books almost conflicted about her feelings for Han and how she's lost Matthias, or not. I'm not sure if she's able to move on, because it's so soon after Matthias has died. I kind of almost find it a bit unbelievable that she can move on so quickly after she lost someone. You know, she didn't know how he died. He just turned up and there was nothing she could have done, especially because her powers changed. She couldn't even try to heal him a little bit to try and get him to a hospital. So there was none of that sort of fallout. There was none of that. It just sort of almost felt like she just sort of moved on very quickly and in favour of a love interest. It almost would have been better if she'd taken until the end of Rule of Wolves to decide that she may try to find love again. But I do feel that maybe she could have spent a bit more time not moving on as quickly, because I just think that's maybe a bit more realistic for having lost someone so suddenly without warning. And similarly, just that whole plot point with Joran, I thought there was just a bit of missed opportunity to really delve into that whole idea, because she's clearly trying to give a plot from Nina where she is trying to change the Fjerdans' minds about Grisha without killing them all, because obviously Matthias, sort of his parting words were, "Have some mercy for my people." I thought maybe there was a bit of a missed opportunity with Joran's character, since he's the man who killed Matthias, for that to really come to a head and play out and have her conflicted about she wants revenge. This is the man that took away her love for no other reason than the fact that he's just misunderstood and been brought up and brainwashed. But Matthias himself said, "Do not blame this boy and have mercy on him." There was no conflict there. There was that one scene where she sort of says she's going to kill him, then Han sort of stops her, and then it never really resolves itself. At least I don't remember it resolving itself. You know, it's just little things like that where it's sort of like it's brought up and then it's brushed aside, because, as I said, it's all so crammed in to this book that there's just not enough time for all these really deep and meaningful plot lines that could really be developed in at least another book. It's just sort of brought up and then brushed aside. It's like, okay, and we're done with that. Move on to the next thing. Nikolai's character, as I said, loved seeing more of him, loved seeing him deal with the political aftermath of the events of Shadow and Bone, but I feel like his arc in sort of, you know, this is a king that has clawed his way to the throne, you know, even before his older brother was died, and that left him basically next in line anyway. He was sort of scheming and trying to get his best way to try and convince his father, the king, that he would be a better ruler. So the fact that he goes from that to then a character who gives up the throne, I felt just maybe could have had a bit more time with that, a bit more depth, and a bit more of seeing that inner conflict of, yes, I want to be king, but am I actually the best option for this country? You know, it just, again, like I said, just rushed and kind of almost out of nowhere. And similarly, sort of in things with the Shuhan, it was really interesting actually seeing them, because they've sort of been this sort of mysterious monolith for the last 5 books. So it was interesting to actually see them and see that they have a matriarchy and the queen will choose the next queen. It's not just passed down to the firstborn. But again, like, you know, the queen that we see is kind of a 2-dimensional character. The princess that we see, again, quite a boring, flat 2-dimensional character. Her bodyguard, whose point of view we get, again, quite, you know, she's exactly the same character as we saw in the first book. She gets those little feelings for Isaac, who, again, we didn't spend enough time with, and then he dies, and you're kind of just like, oh, okay, then never mind. And then her entire motivations for this is with her brother, and that, you know, nothing really changes. That's just her, you know, I found her chapters to be incredibly monotonous, because that was just all she talked about. There was nothing else. It was just sort of, yes, my brother, my brother, my brother, my brother. Which I get, they're trying to hammer home that sort of idea about how twins are really close, and I liked that whole idea, especially in their culture, but again, it was just, there was no more depth to her character. And just a lot of things that were just not brought up and not really anything well. Like Trassel, why was he there? The wolf did nothing. He was just around. Like I said, Kaz and his crew, you could have done without those chapters. I'm fairly sure it would have hit better if maybe Zoya and Nikolai and stuff had done that heist themselves without Kaz, and then have that tease at the end. Inej at the end, again, just shoehorned in. And as I said, you know, the Shuhan, it was nice to finally see them. Again, those chapters didn't really do all that much. There was all that sort of political scheming against the queen with the princess and their grandmother, but to try and sort of get in and keep the alliance with Ravka and stuff. Again, it's like I kind of almost didn't really care, because you knew it was going to work out. There was never really that idea of this is never going to work. You knew it was going to work, so it kind of made that kind of a bit boring. Interesting to sort of see the Kirikou soldiers and actually meet one of them and it be her brother and see how they form a bond with sort of almost like their handler, but again, just not enough time spent with it, not enough build up to it. So yeah, like I said, but at the same time, I did really enjoy both these books because I love Leigh Bardugo's writing and I love the ideas that she comes up with, and this world is so immersive. You know, I was supposed to be doing university work when I was reading Rule of Wolves, but I couldn't finish it because I needed to finish this first and then I was able to concentrate. So, you know, I do like these books and I like a lot of the stuff that happens. You know, I liked that we actually saw the Saints, I liked that stuff about Grisha magic and that sort of misunderstanding and the amplifiers. Zoya's character was a huge standout to me. Nina, like I said, I liked seeing her out with the crows, but again, it was so rushed and just, I think, just not as interesting as it could have been. And even then in Rule of Wolves, then she sort of almost didn't do all that much. She sort of kick-started that one idea of starting a religion for Grisha and how they're, you know, the right hand, they're the Fjerdan god acting it through them or something. You know, interesting idea. Again, happened far too quickly. This is supposed to be a country that has hated Grisha for centuries, suddenly worshipping them, you know, just from one little thing that she sort of kick-started, you know, kind of, again, just felt like that could have had a bit more time to roll. And once she'd done that, it was almost like, oh yeah, man, that's her roll down now. She's just going to be a love interest for Han and try not to get caught by Jar Brim. And yeah, so like I said, just not enough time with anything. And I'm not sure how I would feel, therefore, about another Six of Crows book, because I like that Six of Crows duology, but again, Leigh Bardugo has said she's not writing one, so maybe the tease is just that, a tease, which I'd be fine with, but yeah, you could have cut all the cameos, cut that heist in Ketterdam and spent more time with the actual characters you had rather than just random fan service. And as much as I did enjoy both these books, the things I disliked about it and the pacing kind of overshadowed all the things that I did like about it. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on the duology? Have you read it? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you agree with some of the points that I've made? Please discuss in the comments. I'd love to hear it. No opinion's a wrong opinion. I just love to hear what everyone has to say about these books and what you think about the prospect of more Grishaverse novels in the future. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.